Eighth grade, we are starting a new project today. We are going to work on some of our shading skills from the colored pencils, and we are going to make a jack-o'-lantern, hopefully with some glowing eyes and nose and mouth, depending on what you create. So you're going to need a pencil. You're going to need some colored pencils to do the shading part. I'm not sure if this is going to take 1 or 2 class periods. But we'll get started with the shading probably today and then try to finish it up in the next class period. Okay? So, let's get started. All right, let's open up our sketchbooks to the next page. And you can either have it go portrait style or we can go landscape style, depending on the shape of your jack-o'-lantern. So maybe I'll draw a couple real quick here. Again, starting up in the top here, we're going to go more of a rounded oval shape, and then we should have a stem up at the top. Again, this drawing doesn't have to be 100% fantastic because we will fix some of that with the shading. So we're going to have a few rounded lines, and you can see I bent this one out to the left. I'm going to do one over here that goes out to the right, and then I'll probably put in 1 or 2 more. Looks like I'm going to go with that. Okay, you could go with something like that, or you could have one that is going to go more landscape style. And kind of the same thing. Don't worry too much about how the shape is turning out. Pumpkins are unique shaped gourds. And so, again, we want to get our curved lines in there, just like we would see on a regular pumpkin. And get those in like so. All right. So once we've got those drawn in, then you are going to work on adding a face to it. So I think I'll keep mine fairly simple. We're going to have some eyes carved out like so. I'm going to definitely go with the standard, I think, mouth. Like this. And I'll probably put a nose in there. I'll just go with the regular triangle nose. All right. You can do the same with the other one. You can make these as unique as you want. I wouldn't get too many lines in there because we are going to want to show these being carved out. And so we would get rid of our lines that would be running through any of our features here. And then we kind of want to see the inside groove that would be when we carve it out, so the thickness of the pumpkin would start to show, and I think we would look at it going down into this direction here. We wouldn't necessarily see up into it, and so this is going to be the thicker part, and then here was where we'll see our lighting. Some of these you could have maybe a couple sides to them, maybe something like that, just to give it a little bit of dimension in there. And then I really got to think about how this one's going to show up, and I feel like I'm going to see a lot of this and maybe not so much of that other stuff in there. So I've got some grooves, some thicknesses right there. All right, so once we've got that laid out, then we are going to start using the colored pencils. So I have a variety of colored pencils here. Definitely want a yellow. I've got an orange. I happen to have a red orange and a red and a brown and a black and a white. We're going to use those to help get our shading in. I'll grab a couple extra here. So from here we are going to try to do something that's usually a basic technique in with colored pencils, and we are going to do some layering. So we want the grooves in the center So we've got our groove lines. So in the center of those, we're going to go with a little bit of a lighter tone. I'm going to actually put the yellow all the way through, but that yellow is going to stay in the center, and that will make things start to look like they have the ridges of the pumpkin to them. And it's looking like I'm going kind of sloppy. I'm just trying to fill it in quickly, but I am not putting a whole lot of pressure on the paper. I'm just kind of lightly shading it in. I can actually do that over quite a bit because I think in my eyes we're going to go with a glow look anyway. But I'm just kind of get that basic first coat down here, that first layer. And this one I'm not as precise as I'll be with some of the next ones. I'm going with a little bit longer line than I normally would. It's about that long. Normally I would use some shorter lines, try to keep from changing directions too much. But I'm going to fill this in. And then I'm going to start working on my other colors. When I start to use my oranges and my reds and my browns, I want to think about this shape of this pumpkin. I want to think about some of the directions that some of the things are going, making sure that I am shading in those directions. So I try to go with the roundedness, which usually helps with the pumpkin. And we'll start adding some darker tones here in a moment. All right. So just kind of fill that in kind of loosely, all right? And then along the edges here, I'm going to start filling in my orange tone. Again, I'm not pushing very hard. It's easy to add more to it. It is so difficult to take it away. So we can always get these to be a little darker if we need to. I'm going with a little smaller line than I did with my yellow, so it's a little more control, but I want to make it a little darker along the edges. I think I'll just work in this section for right now, just so you guys get an idea here. So there is nothing that says you can't go back to a color, so I may go back in with some yellow to help blend some of this out. You will see that I probably will do that several times. I'll go back and forth between colors and layer them one layer at a time until I get the desired color that I am looking for. All right. So like I said, I might go in there and hit the edge with a little bit of yellow. Tends to make my orange a little brighter. Some of those pumpkins have some bright orange tints to them. And then I'm lightly going to go down the middle. I want to leave a little bit of that yellow showing through, just so that there is a little bit of a shine. That will help with the curve. It will also help with making it look a little bit more realistic. Again, I'm not putting very much pressure on here. I'm going to go back in with some yellow. Just lighten that up. And I can start hitting some more of my darker colors. So I'm going to use that orangish red. All right, oops, where are we at here? There we go. My red orange. Just lightly, just to give it a little bit darker tone. Lots of different colors in pumpkins. Probably thought it was just orange, but we got to be able to get some different tones in here. So I'm not pushing too hard. Going to go over it with some brown just to darken it up. I'll save my white and my black towards the end where I can go over some things. White on this will be to mostly just kind of blend some colors together and maybe lighten them up just a little bit. But here I'm working the brown, working my way around just to give it a little bit darker tone, and I want it to fade out so that it's going towards the center. And I definitely want it to be a little darker in these grooves. That will help add to the three-dimensional qualities here. And then, like I said, you can always go back, so putting a little orange back in this will give you a little bit darker orange. Take your time, use a smaller line, that'll keep it kind of smooth. I know some pumpkins are bumpy. And like I said, you can always go back in and make it darker, but it is very difficult to lighten it up as you go. And again, you can always go back in with that lighter color too. That will help blend some of those colors. So every time I go over and I layer, those colors are mixing together. So I'm getting some different quality colors as I shade. Takes a little time when you're layering. But basically I'm going to go and do the same thing for each one of these, and then we can start working with the eyes, nose, and mouth. So I'm going to keep working with my colors here and layering them, and I'm going to work my way across the pumpkin. All right? So I've got a couple panels done, and I wanted to go over the fact that I've been trying to, slowly layer the yellows, the oranges, the reds, the browns, and when I'm starting to work with my shadows, I definitely want to make sure it's a little darker underneath. The orange has been doing a nice job of helping me blend that brown out a little bit better. All right, and I want to make sure that that groove is nice and blended, so it's not just a line going through there, but a nice slowly gradual dark to light area. So, and I've been going back and forth adding my darks and lights into different areas. Like I said, I keep going back and forth between my colors to make sure that I'm layering them one on top of the other. That helps with the blending a little bit as well. Helps mix those colors so I can get that nice tone of a pumpkin color like I've got going on in here. So we are going to work on finishing that up for the rest of the panels, and then I think we're going to save the rest for next time. So keep working on your pumpkin. Make sure you're interchanging those colors, layering them ever so gently. Get your oranges, your yellows, your browns, get all those mixing together so that we can start to get a realistic pumpkin. All right. So keep working hard on getting the oranges done for the pumpkin, and then next week we will talk about shading in the eyes, getting that glow. We'll work on getting the stem, and then any touch-ups that we need to do with some white and some black to add maybe a little bit more darks or lights to that pumpkin or to help get them to blend together. So focus on the, I guess, pumpkin body and get those colors in, and then next week we'll finish her up, okay? See you next time.